Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of At My Desk. I'm, of course, your host, Dr. William Lester, and I want to welcome you to this installment of our program. This episode, by the way, is brought to you by the American Institute of Metaphysics, which can be found online at www.instituteofmetaphysics.com. It's also brought to you by GameCon Radio, which can be found at www.gameconradio.com. I was fiddling around with the video before I started the show to check the look on screen with my new glasses, but I noticed this terrible look here with the computer kind of glaring back in my glasses, and it made me look like a little bit more weird than I wanted to look. So I'm going to go glassless to eliminate the glare. I wanted to talk tonight on the show about a subject of great interest to me, a subject that has been of great interest to me for a number of years, and that is the topic of UFOs. Let's give Mr. Pipe another light, see if he can get it going. Now, UFOs have been a topic of great interest and also great controversy for many years because it touches the controversial issue of life out in the universe, obviously extraterrestrial life not of Earth origins. And you know, the kind of iconic question that we have kicked around for decades is, you know, are we alone? And as a matter of fact, it's probably a question that's been pondered for a very long time, as long as man has been able to look up at the stars and wonder about what is out there. What's interesting is that when you get into this topic, and this is obviously something that we will spread out over multiple episodes, it's an all-encompassing subject, so we're not about to cover it all here tonight. But when you really get down into the meat and potatoes of the UFO issue, you've got to go back into ancient times. And there is a very prominent theory by some in the UFO field called the ancient astronaut theory. What on earth does that mean, the ancient astronaut theory? Well, in a nutshell, the ancient astronaut theory puts forth the idea that in antiquity, in ancient times, perhaps even prehistoric times, but certainly in ancient times, extraterrestrials came to Earth and were confronted by or intermingled with ancient civilizations. And having a high level of technology, these extraterrestrials were regarded as gods and observed as deities. Now, if you think about it for just a second, it makes perfect sense. Because you're coming to a planet where the most sophisticated technology might be something like the wheel, or the use of fire, or building simple structures for shelter. So, to these simple people of ancient times, these beings would be creatures of great power and great wisdom, and it makes sense. It would be inevitable for them to be observed as deities. Think about our own technology. What if you could take your laptop or your iPod or your HD TV or your cell phone? What if you could take these objects back 1,000 years or 500 years? The people living in those times would not have any context with which to understand how these devices operate. They would be regarded as something magical, mystical, certainly of a supernatural nature. You might be accused of practicing wizardry or witchcraft. But these people would have no scientific, rational basis upon which to understand that technology. Now, of course, all of those things I named, a laptop, cell phone, and so forth, are part of our everyday life. We deal with these devices every day, and there's nothing particularly extraordinary about them because they are now part of our everyday existence. Even if you're of a certain age, if you're my age or older, you remember black and white television. We certainly never envisioned any kind of plasma television or HD, high definition sound, high definition picture, all of this computer technology. Even in our own lifetime, we've seen the miraculous progress of technology. Okay? So again, think about how people living in ancient times would have regarded a high level of sophisticated technology. Now, why do some people in the UFO field put forth this ancient astronaut theory? Well, because they're looking at artifacts that have been found all over the world, from Mesoamerica to Egypt, to Greece, Rome, into Asia, in other parts of Africa, the Dogon of Africa, and other tribal cultures in Africa. Certainly the Sumerians, they're looking at the Hebrew text. And yes, this type of evidence does appear in biblical writings, which makes it even a more difficult subject to breach with some people. Almost all of these cultures talk about a race of beings who come from the sky to Earth. But let me get back to these artifacts. So we see these in the form of cave paintings, on relief, statuary. We see them appearing in images on the walls of pyramids. We certainly see them in the various mythologies. Now, in the past, many historians have been content to look at some of these writings as just myths. Oh, this is just the folklore of the Greeks or the Sumerians or what have you. But when we look at some of the things that are written and how closely they correlate to the artifacts and the nature of the artifacts, you start lending more and more credence to this ancient astronaut theory. For a lot of people, the landmark work in this particular area came in 1968 with the publication of Chariot of the Gods, written by Eric von Däniken. Some people kind of consider him the grandfather of the ancient astronaut theory. Of course, the late Zecharia Sitchin was another groundbreaking scholar with his work, the Earth Chronicles, where he traces all of this back to ancient Sumeria, which, of course, in modern terms, is Iraq. And it's a very in-depth study on a race that the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, who were said to have come from the sky and essentially created the human race. So, that's just about all the time we have for this installment of the show. I think this is a very interesting topic, and we will spread it out, like I said, over multiple shows and really look into this question of UFOs and extraterrestrials. because I think that, well, I'll put it like a noted researcher put it. It's the greatest story never told. So until next time, I'm Dr. William Lester, and I hope that in the future you will join me here at my desk.